Global climate change is a very hot topic right now, and I really want to keep that momentum going as it relates to the future of my industry of study, enology and viticulture, and many of those in the Niagara region. My name is Lauren Barber, and I am the Sustainabelle. My goal here today is to show you how I used data collected through various sources to outline and project the challenges and opportunities of climate change and how it relates to the future of our wine industry in Ontario. So, where does the Canadian industry fit into the global climate crisis? Because we really do play a part in the contribution of pollution to our planet. But we are also starting to take the steps towards reducing our carbon footprint as a nation. Environment Canada broke down the Canadian industry into 6 different main sectors: transportation, industrial, building, electricity, agriculture, and waste. These pie charts here depict the percentage of greenhouse gas emission contributions by each of these sectors in 1990, 2007, and 2013. The data for these charts came from the National Inventory Report in 2015 by Environment Canada. The transportation and industrial sectors, as you can see, are the largest contributors to the greenhouse gas emissions in Canada. But I wanted to bring the focus here to what those changes in megatons of carbon dioxide emissions by sector were from 1990 to 2013. So this here is a very small snapshot of data in greenhouse gas emissions, giving only 23 years worth of information, and it does not include the more recent years from 2013 to present, but it still gives us the general trends of each of these industries. So as you can see, the transportation, building, and waste industries all increased their megatons of carbon dioxide output from 1990 to 2013. Whereas the industrial, electrical, and agricultural industries all decrease their emissions. And now I kind of want to bring our focus to agriculture in particular. The recent information that Environment Canada has provided in 2017 stated that emissions from agriculture accounted for 60 megatons, or about 8.4% of total greenhouse gas emissions for Canada. These are similar to the levels that were seen in 2005. Canada's agriculture industry stretches across the country, and every province is affected by shifting weather patterns and severe changes. The urgency for action, however, is not lost. Canada has actually committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions to 30% below the levels in 2005 by 2030. This has been outlined in the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change. Farmers are also participating in these efforts through reduced tillage and conservation cropping, and by generating renewable biogas energy from manure. This chart was adapted from data that was supplied by Stats Canada in 2016. The agricultural industry is very important within Canada and actually contributed $108 million in agricultural exports in 2016. It was also noted that from 2011 to 2016, there were 33 new exporters of agricultural products in Canada, which equates to about a 6% growth. So as you can imagine, climate and agriculture are very strongly related. The planting, maturing, and harvesting of crops is all dependent on consistent seasonal patterns. Livestock depend on feed, water, and a tolerable range of heat and humidity for their health and productive growth. Climate helps determine which pests and diseases are going to spread, so that will affect how much time and effort and money that farmers spend on herbicides, insecticides, and other defenses to protect their crops. This can also affect their crop insurance claims. Beyond the harvest, patterns of temperature and weather affect the entire supply chain of storage and transportation and delivery that brings food from the field to your dinner plate at home. The same opportunities and challenges that face the agriculture industry in Canada as a whole with regards to climate change also apply to the grape and wine industry. The Ontario grape and wine industry is a generator of essential economic activities and trade, employment through agricultural production, manufacturing, and tourism, and the supply of Canadian-produced Vitis vinifera grapes over recent years has grown steadily, which has helped increase the production of quality domestic wines. Canada is also a global leader in ice wine production. While many wineries are adopting sustainable practices, there are still many areas where the wine industry can change to help reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and do our part to prevent global climate change. This image here by Ferreira et al. Shows many of the greenhouse gas contributors from vine to bottle in our industry. The focus at many organizations, such as Brock's Cool Climate Enology and Viticulture Institute, are trying to discover ways to reduce these emissions. And many farmers, as well as wineries, are very keen to adopt these new practices. So now that I've introduced you to some of these issues and why they matter, this brings me to my hypothesis that global climate change will cause no changes to the grape and wine industry. The alternative hypothesis is that the global climate change will cause the grape and wine industry to cease to exist as climate change progresses, or it will force changes to occur. While there are so many different climate models out there, I decided to use the ones that Environment Canada had focused on, and that was using data for baseline data. They used Natural Resources Canada 1971 to 2000, and then from 2010 to 2039, they used the Global Climate Change Model Coupled Global Climate Model 3.1, which was developed by the Canadian Centre for Climate Modeling and Analysis. All of the images were provided already online, and they were spatially interpolated using ANUSPLIN software. It was a 2.5 degree grid interpolated to approximately a 10-kilometer grid by Environment Canada. So the images created are from a 30-year average of monthly climate data. So to start out with, I wanted to talk about the length of growing season, because that's very important. And the length of the growing season actually refers to the number of days when plant growth takes place. The growing season often determines which crops can be grown in an area, as some crops require longer growing seasons, while others mature rapidly. As you can see in the Niagara region, we already have a very long growing season, and with increasing length of the growing season, this will result in earlier crop seeding dates and later fall frost dates, sorry. This long growing season can also extend northwards all the way to the Sudbury area by 2039. So this chart here is based on the previous spatial models that were shown on the previous slide, just showing the actual change in the percent of total area in the baseline data compared to the global climactic model. And where Niagara sits is in that greater than 170 growing season days per year. And as you can see, in that comparison of the baseline data to the global climactic change, there is going to be a greater percent of total area in Ontario that has that same or similar length of growing season days per year in that by 2039. Wanted to focus mostly on the Niagara region for now, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of a change throughout all of the length of growing season days, especially at that 100 to 110, where it was quite high in that baseline and is quite low in the global climactic change model. So these images here are, again, from the same database, the baseline from 1971 to 2000, and the GCM 3.1 model, 2010 to 2039, on the right there. And this looks at the moisture deficits in Ontario. So a moisture deficit of 10 millimeters over a time period means 10 millimeters of moisture was removed from the soil that was not replaced by precipitation during this period. So a moisture deficit of minus 10 millimeters means that over the time period, there was 10 millimeters more precipitation than evapotranspiration during the period. So as you can see, there is going to, the global climactic model shows that there is going to be an increase in precipitation in southern Ontario. The moisture deficits by area in Ontario show that there is going to be an increase in moisture deficits in the area. Places that were once with more than negative 100 millimeter deficit will be in ranges closer to negative 150 millimeters. The Niagara region, however, did not show a change in yearly moisture deficits. There was information provided by Environment Canada that projected that there would be an increase in precipitation in the spring in Niagara and in southern Ontario in general, but a decreased precipitation amount in the summer months, causing more drought-like conditions. Growing degrees are the mean daily temperature, so like an average of daily maximum and minimum temperatures above a certain threshold base temperature accumulated on a daily basis over a period of time. So growing degree units can be used to assess not only the suitability of a region for the production of a particular crop, but it can estimate the growth stages of crops, weeds, or even life stages of insects. It can predict the maturity and the cutting dates of forage crops. It can also predict the best timing of fertilizer or pesticide applications, an estimation of heat stress on crops. You can also plan spacing or planting dates to produce separate harvest dates of crops. So as you can see here, the effective growing degree days in Ontario in the Niagara region is already quite high. However, that same level of growing degree days, you are going to start to see closer and closer to that Sudbury region again, like we saw previously with the length of the growing season. This summary of the effective growing degree days in the percent of total area of Ontario shows that in the Niagara region, we were looking at a greater than 1,800 growing degree days on average per year. And you can see that from the baseline data to the global climatic change model data, there's going to be a greater area of Ontario similar to the Niagara region. While I did want to focus on the Niagara region, I did want to bring the attention as well to the 1,200 to 1,400 effective growing degree days. You can see there was quite a big change, a big jump in the total area of Ontario that is going to be in that range. And then that was a big change from the 900 to 1,050 from the baseline data. There was a large area of Ontario in that range of growing degree days, which looks like has probably shifted to that 1,200 to 1,400 in the global climatic change model. So what do those projections mean for the grape and wine industry? Well, this depiction here from Jones et al. In 2012 shows that the average growing season temperatures in Fahrenheit and what varietals are typically grown there. We are considered a cool climate region, so we pride ourselves in lots of our Pinot Noirs, Riesling, Chardonnays, Cabernet Franc, and that's also very similar to the Burgundy region in France. As the climate shifts, though, based on the global climatic model 3.1 that we were previously looking at, there will be possible changes into the varieties that we can grow going forward. If our temperatures start to increase, we might start to have to change what types of grapes we're growing. And looking also at the projected change in monthly precipitation, that shows for much of southern Canada, we're expecting to become wetter during the spring, but drier during the summer. So this is going to increase the disease pressure early on in the growing season for grapes, so that diseases such as powdery and downy mildew and hot drought conditions in the summer, they might cause the vine to reduce growth, and that can ultimately result in issues for winter hardiness. So going forward, creating a sustainable business is going to be very crucial for the grape growers of Ontario, and this is also seen throughout many wineries in the Niagara region. So how can we change these projected climate trends and create sustainable solutions for our future? Some of the ways that we are doing this is through climate information systems that are in place, systems that enhance the climate predictability, so Vine Alert from Brock. Water management technologies are being adopted, improvements in the water collection, drainage, irrigation, and distribution systems, maximizing use of water in livestock production. All of those are playing factors. Better integrated management of natural resources and production systems. So this includes water management, conservation, agriculture, crop and pasture rotations, adjustment of planting dates, technological innovations to reduce climatic risks, so biotechnology innovations to improve drought resistance, as well as pest and disease resistance, invasive species, and improvements in irrigation and infrastructure. There's institutional innovations with the capacity built for early warning systems for climate, improved policy and regulatory frameworks for water management, agricultural, and catastrophic risk insurance. Also looking at bottom-up participatory processes for climate change adaptation and reducing threats to climate variability. A global change will be required in order for climate change to be mitigated. Many people understand that global change is required for this issue to be slowed down. Collectively, the global community needs to come together to preserve our planet for us and future generations. However, many people feel that individually, they do not make a large difference in greenhouse gas emissions. But it's really time to change that pyramid of thinking. I truly love this quote by Mahatma Gandhi. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world changes towards him. We need not wait to see what others do. We need not wait to see what others do. So every single one of us makes a choice in our daily lives on how we use energy and resources. And if every single one of us makes a change at home, that will start to influence the local community. And finally, we will start to notice a global change. Remember that we are all a part of the global community. So start to think of things that you can do back in your own homes. Here are a few things that you can take home and use in your own backyard to implement some sustainable gardening practices. Sustainable gardening uses resources in a very smart and ecologically minded way. The happy result of gardening this way means that you'll have less waste, use fewer chemicals, and overall, gardening will cost less and be a lot healthier. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.